Hello, everyone. Today we are back to talk about something we don't understand. So today we're talking about I just don't understand why their office looks like that. And when Chelsea and I started talking about this, it was like thinking about spring cleaning and thinking about how we keep our spaces and why we have certain things in our space. And one of the things I mentioned is that I don't want it to be about like mess or not mess because I think any type can be messy or, quote unquote messy. But it's like I was really interested in like what do we keep around us
Mhm.
to motivate us or to support us or I don't know. Chelsea, you elaborate.
Yeah, I'm thinking about two different things. One is when I worked in an office.
Hmm.
Um, and like I remember when I first started, I was a financial advisor for a decade, and I remember walking around the different financial advisors' offices and looking at the different cubes, and they all had a different personality in them. And some I would walk into and I'm like, holy cow, I am overwhelmed. Some
Yep.
I was like, wow, you must have a lot of money. And some I was like, do you even work here? Like there's nothing
Yeah.
here, there's just a computer. And it's so funny to see how people's personalities just in the office space it comes out like people use their space to express themselves, but also now that so many people work from home, I mean, I'm a seven and look in my background. I mean, I
Mhm.
have sticky notes that are not even. So if anyone is like a structure person looking at my background, they're like, oh my gosh, I need to fix those sticky notes. And they've been back there for like 3 weeks,
Yeah.
so or longer.
Yeah, I was like, I don't actually remember a time that they weren't there. So
It's an unfinished project right there. So, so it's in the office, but also in our personal lives, like our backgrounds and the space that we are in. It shows so much about our personality and can either overwhelm or underwhelm or give people the right or wrong idea depending on what that perspective is.
yeah. I think this conversation is probably going to be a little bit different because one of the things that we want to drive to here is maybe, the top three things that someone might have in their space. But I'm also clear that like it's going to be like the type of thing.
Mhm.
And maybe the reason for having that thing. So it's going to be I think this will be a curious little conversation and more about like what we need to feel safe and productive in our workspace.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I don't understand why their office looks like that. Should we start with eights?
Let's go with eights.
Um, this is interesting for me because I've never actually worked like at a corporate job,
Mhm.
but when I think about what does an eight need? An eight needs their tools to be present and at attention. Like there is nothing that drives me more crazy. Like I have two printers sitting over there, neither of them work properly, and I want to throw them out the window. I would rather not have a printer. And so now I'm like, take these printers out of my presence and I will just go to FedEx every single time. So it's like have for me, it's like making sure that whatever I have in my presence is usable.
Mhm.
I do not like frivolous things around me when I
Yeah. Yeah. In
actually
your
at
space,
all.
I also see in your space, I also see boldness, right? There's you in your home, in
Yeah.
your office, you have bold colors around you.
Hmm.
There is always a sense of like of boldness, but not messiness. It's bold
Yeah.
and like clean, right? It's bold. Bold's the only words I can think of there.
And that is really like and I don't know if this is true for all eights. I'm trying to think about all the other eights I know, but there will be, I think, a sense when you walk into an eight's office that they are the authority, that they will even manage their space as they are the authoritarian within it.
Mhm.
And I think that they might be somebody where, standing desk or not standing desk, if it makes them feel more powerful to stand, you might find an eight with a standing desk because
Yeah.
that's going to be easier for them to assert. Um, but I think there's going to be a lot of, that when you walk into an eight space, it will be done the way they want it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's not going to be a lot of compromises in there.
Yeah, I also think about position, like the position of a desk or like the type of, there's an eight that I used to work with in his office. He had this like huge desk, like his desk was
Mhm.
massive and he
Mhm.
had the nameplate that was like, here's his name and he
Yeah.
took up space. You know, it was like everything that he had took up space. Even not just his own physical presence, but this his own space took up space.
Well, like I think it's the striving to expand your influence thing.
Hmm.
Eights are constantly striving to expand their influence. So like the office is meant to influence that's it. The actual office environment is meant to influence just by walking into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were talking about with my space is like when you walk into my office at home, I'm at my studio right now, so it's a little bit less like that. But when you walk into my office at home, it is specific.
Yep.
Actually, when you walk into any space that I have created, it is
Yeah.
specific. And I am not someone who can do clutter, but I think that that is my orientation towards control. I'm not sure. And like, that's why I didn't want to go down the messy route because I think
Yeah.
there's messy people of every type.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago, my mother would have told me, why don't you ever pick up your room? And now I'm like, oh, I'll pick up my room. Oh, I'll pick up my room.
Well, I'm thinking about, my stepson's an 8, and in his room, he finally felt at home in his room when I let him organize it the way he wanted to.
Yep.
And it's not at all how I would do it, but it is how he wants it,
Yep.
and it gives him so much of more of that sense of
I
power
mean,
and control and comfort. So,
their own space. Actually, this is something that might be interesting to go as we go through is like, what kind of an office are they going to want? And eights are going to want their own space.
their own space, yeah.
In some sort of way have their own.
Yep.
Okay,
Let's
cool.
talk about 9.
Ah, ooh, nines, I tend to see more on the chaos side on their desk.
Yeah.
I
Um,
experience a lot of piles.
yeah. I'm thinking about my husband's desk because he's a 9, and it's like it's not as I will say it's not as messy as my desk, but it is it's like there's little things. It's like little trinkets, like little just little things that bring him joy that don't really go together
Mhm.
necessarily, but that mean something to him. And so there's little he's like 9s are typically really creative. And so there's always like a thing that he's drawn, right? So it's very
Mhm.
individualistic still. It's like expression, but it's not put together,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not cohesive.
not cohesive.
My dad's a nine, and I just always remember his desk literally being piled high with old computers, old paperwork, things he hasn't gone through because there is that falling to asleep to themselves. And like a lot of that, if you're asleep to yourself, you're asleep to the paperwork sitting on your desk that like needs to go out or like, this thing that needs to be sent. So if I was going to like say about, who gathers the most clutter,
Mhm.
a type nine is the type that does that because what I find interesting is while they want harmony and peace,
Mhm.
if it's uncomfortable to create it or if they have to the energy to constantly maintain a clean desk feels like disruption to them.
Yeah, I could see that. I see 9's desks being kind of like cluttered on the sides. It's
Mm,
like this push it to the side, push
mhm,
it away.
mhm.
And also they'll hold on to things that they think they might need later.
Yeah.
So it's like I might want to I'm thinking about we had a broken pole, like a broken laundry basket or something. And a long, long time ago, my husband was like, "Well, we have to keep this pole because we might need this for something." And I'm like, "No, we don't." But
Pick
nines
it,
will
we'll buy a new one when it happens. Mhm.
but like there was some sort of utility, something I can do with this. And I think, that optimism of I can create something with this later, or I can do something with this later, instead of doing something with it now. Like it's more disruptive to do something with it now, and it's more comfortable to think about what can I do with this later.
Also, it's about separation.
Hmm.
Like not being separated from their things just as much, because nines don't like to be separated. So like I will find that nines will have like their comfort food or
Hmm.
their comfort, like like their comfort drink or like their creature comforts are going to be very much present at their desk. They might like
Yep.
make their chair really comfortable. Or, they're going to have a comfortable office.
Yeah, and things that really bring them joy. So like a lot of 9s will like incense or candles or yeah, like a coffee, like their coffee cup, and they'll be like the same one. They'll drink out of the same coffee cup every
Yes.
day, and eat the same thing for breakfast and the same snacks. A lot of that kind of same routine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about our ones. What do we see? What's a one's office like?
Are my pens straight? It is minimalistic. I don't even typically see a lot of color in a
Mhm.
one's
Yeah,
office.
definitely not.
Hmm. Actually, one of the ones that I used to work with, they worked in their office for 4 years, I
Mhm.
think, when I knew them, and they were the one had they had their computer and they had their one notebook and their one pen,
Mhm.
and that was it. And there was nothing on the walls. It
Mhm.
was just really, really basic and simple. And not all ones are like that. Some ones like to have more of that.
Yeah, that
There's
would be more on the
around them.
extreme side of that, but
Yeah, yeah,
science.
but it was yeah, but it was funny because I would walk in and be like, "Do you even work here?" But it was just because everything was very clean, very neat, very structured, had a purpose, had an intention.
Well, I think you're going to find a one with a planner and likely a written planner of some sort. They're going to want to write out their schedule or written lists. Like
Mhm.
that's going to be, I think, there no matter what. But I'm in a coaching relationship with a one, and he has piles. And we
Mhm.
actually talked about why he has piles. And it's like, he's like, well, that isn't actually my top priority in terms of like, that's not what he measures himself against in terms of like good enough.
Yeah.
Because he's an SX1, so it's very much, he's very much focused on everybody else and what they need to do rather than maybe what he needs to do for himself.
Mhm.
So he's able to like work around those piles. And I was actually kind of shocked by it. We talked through it and I was like, I
Mhm.
actually think you get to go attack those piles because it's you avoiding your right wrong conversation.
Mm.
I was
Yeah.
like, actually, I am
That's
avoiding that.
yeah, but that's what's so interesting. And every time, every single time we talk about the Enneagram, this is the thing that always comes that I always come back to is like what's right for one person or how one person does right or wrong is not the same that way that everyone does right or wrong. For some people it's about justice and for some people it's about giving. And for I mean it can be anywhere in between and anything outside of that, right? It's not just one thing or the other. And so that's such a great example of like his right or wrong is not actually about what someone else is, how we might think of right or wrong.
Yeah, because he focuses most of his right on wrong energy on like a mentorship role and bringing the people around him up with him. So he's not hyper focused on is my desk being experienced as right or wrong.
Mhm.
But you're going to see a lot of ones with like measurement tools and like how do I measure like rule like the things they will have the things that they need that are the right things to get the job done.
Yeah, everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. And so I even think about my stepdad, we used to work in the same office and his office, like everything on his desk, it wasn't like spick and span clean.
Mhm.
I mean, it was always clean, but wasn't always like perfectly arranged and neat. But everything that he needed was within reach.
Mm,
Everything had a purpose, everything had an intention, he had a process for things.
yeah.
Even if it's not a process that other people would understand, right? It was his process.
Yeah.
So I think and I see that commonly with anyone is that there is a process to the work that they do in their space.
Yeah. Heard. All right. Twos. This one's
Hmm.
kind of easy. Their desk is going to be covered in photos of their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Covered.
And a little conversational things too. So like a friend of mine who's a two, he had in his office, he would have like a funny saying on a sign, because it was a conversation point, and it would, bring people in, it would engage
Maybe
people.
some Disney memorabilia.
Mhm. Yep.
I always,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I see Disney, I'm like, are you a two or a nine?
Yeah.
I'm like, if we got one of these two happening right here.
Yeah, yep. But yeah, so I see that kind of thing or family photos. I mean, covered. Often twos will decorate their
Yeah,
spaces.
they'll have the most messy, not messy, but like covered.
Covered. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Also, they're likely going to have like a comfy place for somebody to sit, or they're going to have chocolate in a bowl that
Yeah.
like invites people in. This is actually a tactic I use all the time. It's like, well, if you have chocolate, people just, they just start talking to you.
I have chocolate right here.
Yeah,
So,
but also, oh gosh, don't put those near me. You know what happens. But I also have a super high too. So I actually also, I think I keep my space as a blend of that 8 and 2 energy of like
yeah.
power and control. But like, yeah, it's fascinating it's going to be relationship oriented. How do I keep and maintain my relationships? And how do I invite new relationships in via my space?
Yeah. Yeah, twos will use their space as their way to, like all of us do, but for specifically for twos as a way to express themselves because they don't often express themselves through themselves. They express it through others. And so they use those photos and the photos of the experiences and the Mickey ears or the Harley photo,
Mhm.
whatever the thing is to create connection and to express themselves and share what they love and what they care about.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
twos are typically pretty, I find pretty, even if their space has a lot of things in it, it's usually pretty neat because they do function at such a high, like I have to do things
Output.
for other people, high output, that they have to have some level of organization and management of that space.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Threes. The
Mhm.
diploma is showing.
Framed on the
The
back. Yeah.
certificate is showing. It is like, if they have a certificate, it is present.
Yep.
That's the first thing I think of. And their office, my brother's a three. His literally the wall behind him is filled with all of his shoes.
Oh, yes. He
And
loves
yeah,
shoes.
like my brother's a sneakerhead, and like he's always like, "Wait, do you see all my shoes?" I'm like, "How could I miss them?" And he's really he like the three monitors and the best chair, and like he's really, a three is going to be more into like, what does my office look like? What does my office say about me?
What does my office say about me? That's what I was gonna say. My mom is a three, and in her office she literally had a sign in there that said "Get shit done."
Mm-hmm.
Because threes are like output, produce, like what, and always very warm and inviting because threes are often really good leaders, and so in an office space, their offices are going to be places where people can come in, but not in like a cozy way. It's going to be in like a hey, I'm here to coach you way. It's like a almost like a therapist office kind of like
Yeah, it's like, um, they're going to keep it pretty like they're going to keep it pretty locked up because
yeah.
they don't want anybody entering their office to think that they might need anything from them. So if there's any signifier in the office that like something's not going wrong, right? Like
Mhm.
I think having clutter or something like that in a three's office would signify that maybe they can't handle it,
Mm.
which is why I see threes generally having a more organized space.
Yeah.
Even if they aren't like handling it, they're gonna make it look like they're handling it.
Yeah. Yep, it is. And what you said earlier is exactly right. It's about what that space says about them.
Mhm.
Um,
And they're
yeah.
gonna want it to look successful. Like
Yeah, elevated.
yep. hmm There's
Mhm.
a reason
And
why
again,
Hannah tells me how much the wall costs. I'm like, oh God.
like
Uh,
but I will see threes having a lot of photos of their family too, and trips that they went on, but it's like it's gonna be like in nice frames and very organized and perfect and
yep.
almost more perfectionistic than a one
Presentable.
presentable. There we go. More
Yep.
presentable. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. All right, fours. This one's kind of easy, actually.
Yeah.
Fours, you can tell a four because you go in and you're like, what's all this odd shit?
Yeah.
There's just oddities. They just, they will have, oh, this was so funny. I was doing a debrief for a four that worked in like a tech role. And dude, I'm on the call and we don't get a lot of fours in our particular sectors. And this happened to be in the fashion world, but he wasn't on the design side. And he was like, I don't know that I'm a four. In his background is a skeleton, like he's like in one of the most individualistic backgrounds that I have seen. Like it is stylized, it is selected, there is spooky shit going on. Like fours love their spooky shit.
I was just gonna say
Um,
like dark and moody. Their
yeah,
offices, their spaces are dark and moody.
probably a tarot deck there, depending on how
Yeah,
dark
maybe.
we are.
Maybe.
Mhm.
But like really interesting art, or at least if it's not art, it is a unique expression of something interesting that they do. So a four that I know, she's like in her mid-30s and she's a skateboarder. And so she like collects skateboards and has a cool, always has cool things going on like that. Interesting hobbies and any way to showcase those interesting interests and hobbies.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Our fives. I see this going one of two ways.
I know. Depends on how healthy they are.
Yeah, it's like or again, their relationship to what is conservation of time and energy, because I see a lot of fives that work in a minimalistic space. They don't want anything around them. They don't have things on the walls. They don't have things.
Mhm.
And then I see the fives that are covered in their things. But honestly, those are usually the more overwhelmed fives.
Yeah, or the ones who, when we haven't talked a lot about this on in this series, but when fives are really stressed, they tend to go to seven first, and
Mhm.
so they kind of get more chaotic and messy,
Yep.
and not in a really great way, right? It's like the stress spot side of a seven where it's really cluttered and I see a lot of when I think about a five, that's kind of what I picture is like files everywhere, like
Files
files of
stacking up.
folders and nothing has a place, right? It's that over creating overwhelm because they can't get rid of
Mhm.
anything because they have to hoard and maintain and keep that information and their resources close to them.
Well, and that's, avarice or sloth, or not, sloth is different. That's for the nine. Avarice is the word for that, it's keeping, it's hoarding.
Hoarding, yep.
So hoarding their time and energy, but also hoarding objects. And I'm not even saying that maybe the more healthy version of that is the austere, because I think that
Right.
can be very much the other direction
Yep.
of like, I will have nothing because anything coming into my space, we're not talking right, wrong here. We're just
No, no,
talking about different strategies for how people get through the world. But the more there is around a five, the more chaos they will constantly feel. They create their own overwhelm with that chaotic space.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I also see fives, to your point earlier, being very minimalistic, intention, like their space doesn't change, it doesn't shift. The five that we work with, her background is always the same. It's in a very specific place. It's like
Mhm.
it's just it's and we talked earlier about this too, hours of work. Like fives aren't going to maybe work when everyone else works if they have the option.
Yeah.
They'd rather work in those off hours. So maybe they
Yeah.
have a light because they need the light to work in, or they need, more of like an individualized, eights, or I'm sorry, eights need their own space, fives need their own space.
Yep. Well, and you'll find fives have headphones. If they work in a communal space, they like will drown everyone out. I know a five that likes to work in the dark
Mm,
at their office. Like they will turn off the lights because it creates that cocoon. I know a lot of fives, they work at night, as you said, because no one else can access them. It's on their own time.
mhm, mhm.
So, I mean, most fives would prefer to work at home. I don't think it's an exaggeration at all that like most fives want to work at home. I
Yes, I think so too.
I
Yeah.
know 0 to 1 5 that wants to go into the office.
I agree. I agree. Also books. They're gonna have books no matter what. Every five that I get, they have books around them.
So many
The
of them.
topic will vary, but they will always have books in their space.
Hmm. Truth, truth. Okay, sixes. Fire extinguisher.
Fire blanket.
Sixes are the space that I'm like, how do they keep their space? Because
Hmm.
this is the one that I'm like, they're gonna want comfort, but like for them, I find that it's more about the people. Like, do I have people sitting around me that create that safety and security?
Yeah, I'm having a harder time with this one. I do find that sixes usually have a really neat space.
Hmm.
They're very responsible and pretty structure oriented. And so having a neat space, they don't have clutter, they don't overdo a
Hmm.
lot, at least in my experience. I don't know a lot of sixes who over have like too much stuff.
No.
It's always kind of an appropriate
Yeah.
space. Uh,
Appropriate is actually, I think, a
appropriate.
really good word for the way sixes tend to keep their space. And they don't want to have to worry because they seek out like hidden intentions. They wouldn't necessarily put a lot of things on their desk that are going to create the possibility for people to misinterpret them.
Yeah. And they might even be really more private, and not display a lot of their own personal stuff because that could be giving too much information. Um,
I think
yeah.
there's a preparedness there. Like, my mom has a lot of six in her. Our business manager has a lot of six. Um, they have backups for things. Like
Mhm.
they have redundancies for things. Like they know where their backup key is. They know where their batteries are. Like you can count on a six to have the batteries for
Yeah.
the stuff.
Yep. They have a water bottle.
Yeah.
They're highly aware of that. Maybe some snacks in the drawer
Prepared.
prepared. Yeah.
I'd actually love to just hear from other people. Like, what do sixes have on their desk?
What are all of the types, right? Because like this is the one conversation we've had where I actually don't feel so super, super confident
Yeah, no,
about
I don't
some of those that
know.
we've said.
Yeah.
So I want all the feedback. I want to know what
Mhm.
maybe we put a call out on face or on our social media, like what does your space look like and what is your Enneagram type?
Wondering. Yeah.
Send us
Okay.
pictures of your space.
Hmm. Um, and sevens. Hello, seven. Hello,
Yeah.
seven. What
Seven.
is their space?
Well, my space is always cluttered and a mess, because I have a million projects going on at any given time and no time to clean. So
I
I
find this with every seven friend home. I'm like, because I am such a control. I didn't realize that how I was such a control freak about my space until I walked into my seven friends' homes and I was like, y'all feel calm here?
and the answer is no. The answer is no. Like because like spaces are so often overstimulating to me, at least for me, but I don't have it comes down to decision making. So like I just painted my bathroom a few weeks ago and I color drenched it and I love the color I picked, but I haven't hung pictures up because I can't decide where I want them to go.
Hmm.
And not because I can't visualize it, but it's because I can visualize and I can see a million different directions that it could go in. And so I'm like, well, here's the pictures. They'll just stay there.
No, you should have told me this. I would have had him on the
I
wall
know.
in 5 minutes.
I know.
This is a special skill I have.
I know. This is like it's like I need to bring people into my space for this reason. Um
But I
that's
think there is going to be that element of like they're going to have their travel pictures or like even right behind you, you see like you're brainstorming. There will be some sort of brainstorming area.
Mhm.
It's probably going to be a plant that's half dead because you thought it was a good idea and then you didn't really think about watering it. You're going to have maybe like I'm just thinking I have so many seven friends and I'm like it's just like a little bit of chaos but never like to the point where you can't just sweep it all away and like start over.
Yeah, and I have a seven friend who her space is very curated, very curated. And there's a story behind everything that she has in her home and everything that she has in her space. So like she loves to thrift, and so she'll find these really cool furniture items and she'll haggle with people, and that's her thing. And so there's always a story. There's always some sort of interestingness about
Does
her
she have
space.
a lot of four in her?
No, no, a lot of two. She's a social seven.
Interesting.
Um, to eight. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But
So
her space is it's vibrant. It has a ton of personality and there's a story behind everything, but it's always very, very put together.
I think that eclectic could be something that what you just said is like, it doesn't, for a seven, it doesn't all have to go together in the way that some people would think. Like these things go together because of color or whatever. It's like, no, they go together because they're me, because they're
Yeah.
experiences I've had, because,
Yeah.
and not being limited, not feeling restricted, that's going to be like, okay, well, I get to put whatever I want in my space.
Yeah, and funny, so like sense of humor things too. So like in my dining room, there's a picture, like a drawing of Stewie, and it's autographed by Seth MacFarlane.
Mhm.
I have a framed photo of Will Ferrell in my house. I have I have funny things that are conversation starters. Um, so that's one thing I think you'll see in Seven Spaces too, is like where something that's silly, something that is a conversation, has a story, brainstormy, clutter, usually lots of different unfinished projects.
I always find it fascinating because I'm like, I think it's hilarious. And yet I would like, I can't even imagine putting up like a funny talking piece in my home. Like that doesn't, and I have so much seven in me. And I'm like,
You're like, I'm judging you.
I am judging you. I don't like that about myself, but I am. I'm like, that's fascinating. But also I have the thing of like, I don't have enough wall space for all the beautiful art that I want to put up. So like part of me is like, I need to buy a whole nother house because I want to decorate again.
Uh, I know. You can decorate my house because I need support with that.
I'm really good at it.
I give you the big picture. This is a seven thing. Like the big picture
Mhm.
is there, right? Like I can pick the colors, I can pick like that. But when it comes to actually curating the space, I know what I want it to look like. But when it comes time to actually make the decisions to buy the things or put the things where they should go, that's where my seven brain gets overwhelmed or even shuts down and moves on to something else.
Mhm.
Because it just feels like too much.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Too much. All right. So should we do, well, maybe our most and least clutter. Oh, should we do cluttered? Like
Yeah,
most
let's do
cluttered,
clutter.
least cluttered? Yeah. So hang on, let's write it down really quick. Get it.
Hmm. This is a hard one.
Because really, truly, I think any type can be either messy or not messy, or cluttered or not
Yeah.
cluttered. Like I don't see this running a type line, but I do think that there are instances. I've got a list.
I do too. I'm not confident in my list, but
We'll open it up for a debate. That's like, I think we can have, actually, that would be really fun to put out in our newsletter. Send us a picture of your desk and actually maybe put this on LinkedIn. Send us a picture of your desk and your type and
yeah,
like, we write.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like that idea. Let's do that.
Okay,
Most
so
most cluttered.
most cluttered, starting in position 3,
Hmm.
I put 7.
Yeah, I had 7 also.
And then your second place?
Um, so I'm going back and forth between 2 and 4.
Interesting. I had 5.
Uh-huh. I had initially had 5 and I marked it out.
Hmm. I would
2 and
do.
4 I said because twos won't be cluttered. It won't be like messy, but there'll
It'll
be
be,
a lot going on. Like it's always very,
and fours will have a lot going on too, but I don't think about them like, I guess I was thinking about clutter more than like objects.
yeah, no, that's true. Like I said, I had 5 written down. I could settle on 5. I could, yeah,
What was your top?
9.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But I 2 and 4 didn't actually even make it on my list because I think about them that have things but are very like
On purpose. Yeah.
specific. Yeah, on
Yeah, on
purpose.
purpose
Like
with
it's
the
like
thing.
even the four thing is like they're gonna have a bunch of stuff, but like everything will be set in very specific ways,
Mhm. Yeah.
in my experience.
Mhm.
Okay, so least likely to have clutter, number 3.
I had 3 in that space.
I had 3 in my number 2 space. So I
Yeah.
put I put 8 in my least likely to.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had 3 and
Hmm.
2 and then 1.
Yeah. I had 8, and then 1 was my least.
So we
They're the
agree
least
there.
likely to be cluttered. Yeah.
I'm fine with either. I think threes are a little, I don't know. I feel like threes are less likely to have clutter than
Yeah. I think you're right.
the 1, 3. So top
Yeah.
goes 1, 3, 8, and then 9, 5, 7.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I'm thinking about because my mom is a 3 and she is a person who has clutter. But she has a lot of 7 in her also.
Mhm.
And so and maybe a little ADHD. So that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
that's going to throw off the whole thing.
I know.
Except for me, I'm just like, no, nothing can be in my sphere. I'm also somebody who like auditorily, there can be nothing in my world when I'm working. Like I can't even manage like auditory clutter. Like that stuff's gonna
Yeah.
make me lose. Like you've experienced this many times. Like,
Like, do you want me to sit there? Do you want to trade spots?
like I can't handle this. All right. Well, I think this is a cool conversation to figure out how to invite other people into. So
Yeah, I think so too.
yeah, thanks for watching if you are actually watching this.